Hello, hope you guys are doing alright. This is your review for the final. So I've created a exam review sheet. So what I've done, we kind of had to scale back. It would be kind of impractical to do the hands-on that was planned. So this is going to be the written portion only, and I've scaled the points it's worth up to 200. So you'll notice like a lot of the questions that used to be worth like I think 3 or worth 5 each or something like that. It's just changed the values on them. So it's going to be on Tuesday, Cinco de Mayo, from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. It's only on Brightspace. It's going to be open notes and open book. The only thing you really shouldn't be doing is asking your a human being who's living, right, in real time. So that's your honor code on that. It's 120 minutes. Probably should be shorter because it's really not that long. It's 39 questions total. Actually, I didn't check to see if my math adds up here, but I can tell you it is 39 questions. I'll check the math on this later just to make sure it makes sense. It's everything since spring break, and then I break down what everything is about here. So here's and really what I just did, I kind of want to like give you guys a break on this. So I just went through and wrote the guide very closely to what the questions are. So it starts off with 13 multiple choice questions, and these are the topics. See, kind of the first little easy question on the DBMS output window, that thing I told you about in the video, you got to make sure it's turned on. Being able to distinguish the features of these versus each other, like for example, SQL's not like really like a programming language, which is more like what SQL is, and then SQL Plus is like, you know, dressed up SQL for Oracle. So just make sure you understand the differences among those. There's more than 2, so you don't say between, but it still sounds weird. All right. Know about exceptions in PL SQL, complex view versus simple view. In particular, I think there's a little bit of wishy-washy. I think it might depend on Oracle versions or something, but you can always do like the DML on simple views as long as you have like everything. You got all the permissions and everything turned on for the tables for that user. But complex views, in some, because I've done it, I tested it out and it worked. You can insert in the right conditions, but let's just say you can't. So for the purposes of this class, you can't insert into the base tables of the complex through the complex view. Know about triggers, the different types of triggers. We didn't really cover that in the lab, but we had a quiz, so just review these different things. If you do this, it's multiple choice, so you should be able to figure out the right answer. The row type keyword in PL SQL, like a procedure, it allows you to like, you know, the percent. Let me do this. This will give you a better hint. It allows you to like conveniently get all the data types for those parameters across a whole row. We didn't really talk about this stuff either. Granting roles and privileges and stuff. Refer to this. This really should be in 1. I don't like the format here, so privileges and roles and privileges. I'll put it this way: roles, privileges, and then let's indent like these two. I can't indent it. There we go. No. There we go. So look at this handout. It'll give you like a place to start, and the book covers it. And you know, if you just know the basics of this stuff, you'll get those couple of questions. Have your lab that we did for Lab 8, I think it was, the Java lab, just have it open and be able to consult that for these questions on it. It's very basic level stuff that we did in that lab. There's a question about check constraints. And then these two here, like, so the matching questions is on this whole, like, especially last half of the class, but really the whole class. There's comparing and contrasting DML and DDL statements, but throw in just simple query and data control and transaction control statements. And what you'll have is you'll have examples on the test. You'll have code, and you'll be asked, like, what is this an example of? Like, an update set would be DML, for example. So you'll have to pick the right one of these, and these are the ones you have. This is the selection. So if you know all these, you'll be able to match them up with the code. Same thing here with PLSQL. It's not code in this case, it's just descriptions of these. So basically you'll have definitions of each one of these. You just have to match the definition with the right word. So this is one half of the matching question, and the definitions are the other half, so you'll have to match them up. You'll have a block of code, which is a trigger, and again, we didn't really go over that, but maybe I'll make a video or something. I talked about it a little bit in one of the lab videos, but you had the quiz on trigger, so review that quiz, have that open in front of you, maybe have the answers for it. If you can turn those on or not, they might not be hidden from you, but yeah, so review triggers and have some notes on that, and you'll have some written questions on it, so you have to kind of describe the parts of the code. Like, I'll just tell you one of the questions is, well, I've got it here, part of trigger set. One of the questions is, what's the name of the trigger? You have to be able to read the code and figure that out. And then some other parts, like how that colon new stuff works. Just being able to break apart and describe what's going on in the trigger. There's a true-false question. One true-false question up here about declare sets. Yeah, so there's this block this question after the trigger section. It's a code block about declare. It's really only one question on it. It's kind of weird, but it's a true-false question. But the question is having to do when you do and don't include the declare block section. A couple questions on alter table and a primary key constraint. The features of a what do you have to be sure you do with primary key, and what stuff you don't have to worry about with primary key. That's a hint. I think it's come up in it's in the video. I mentioned it in the video, I remember. There is, let's see, what's the next part? Some more multiple choice questions. So there's some question on the index, feature and indices. Some on transaction concept. There's a few questions on transaction concepts, ACID. So what's atomicity? Let's see if I remember them. Consistency, isolation, and durability. Making sure you know what describes what when it's described. Is that an example of atomicity, or is it durability? So there's a few questions on that. There's a question on delete versus truncate. Honestly, I never used truncate, so but if you know the difference between those two, I know some of you have used it in class. Just make sure you know what the effect is of using one versus the other, if there are any differences. What does the primary key do for you when it comes to inserting data in particular? Check constraints, table versus column level, be able to tell the difference between those. And then you have a longer written question on you'll have a sequence, an example of a sequence, and you'll have to describe kind of what's going on with that sequence in your own words. And the same thing for there's an insert into that uses a sequence, and you kind of have to describe what's going on with that insert and how it uses the sequence. It's just more of a couple of 3 sentences answer, and that's the whole test. So it's really not that long. I think you guys will have more than enough time. If you're hazy on stuff like triggers and privileges and roles, which is, I apologize for that. This is crazy semester. I just wanted to give you one lab per week if I could. So just review that or have some open notes on it. And you got 2 hours to do it, so I think you'll be all right. I didn't say this in any of my other courses because I hadn't planned it yet, but I realize now I will create a Microsoft Teams meeting invite for the time period of the final. And I've got plenty of time to do that. It's kind of, Teams is so, you wouldn't, I don't know, if you haven't used Teams, you might not know what I'm talking about. Like, I can't just create, I need to create a group where I don't have to type you in individually every time. Anyway, I'll create a Teams meeting. So like if you have, oh, the quiz won't open, or can you clarify this question? What is it asking for? That kind, the typical stuff like if you were in the classroom that you might ask me. So I'll be there in case there's some kind of catastrophe or something. But yeah, I'll be in a Teams meeting. It's optional. If you want to, you can just start the exam, take it, finish, and And I didn't say this too, but there's stuff I have to grade manually. So obviously the grade, if it gives you a grade at the end, is not going to be accurate until I grade it. So don't panic and be like, oh, I failed, right? That happens every time. No matter what school, no matter what test, there's always that student that's like, why is my grade so low? I'm like, well, it's manually graded on that written part. So anyway, you get the idea. If you have any questions about reviewing before, then send me an email. I canceled the office hours, I think you noticed, because it's really the end of the material. So if you have questions about reviewing and stuff, or maybe some past due stuff, send me an email. If we need to, we can schedule a Teams meeting or something. But otherwise, I think that concludes the review plus extra stuff that I talked about. And good luck on the test. And again, let me know if you need help between the time you hear this and the time of the final.